And we're back. We left off discussing competition within free markets. We discussed a perfect competition and a monopolistic competition. Let's look at some other types. Next up, we're going to take a look at an oligopoly. With an oligopoly, you have a few sellers who dominate the market. The initial investment usually very large, like producing an aircraft company. Products from different companies are priced about the same. Example: mobile phones operating systems controlled by Apple's iPhone and by Google's Android. So let's take a poll. Who's team iPhone? All right, hands down. Who's team Android? Yep, that's me. I'm on the Android team. Haha. Now, with a monopoly, you have one seller controls the total supply of a product or a service and sets the price. Examples would be public utilities. Now, in the United States, look at this, monopolies are prohibited in the United States, meaning that there should not be just one seller controlling the market. However, a monopoly may exist due to the high cost of entry. So, depending upon where you live, here in St. Louis, Missouri, for example, we only have one electric company, which is Ameren. Now, I guess you could get solar energy, so that might be a competitor, but as of right now, Ameren pretty much has a monopoly here in St. Louis on the electric industry. Okay, let's begin with the benefits first of free market capitalism. Benefits are allows for open competition among companies, provide opportunities for poor people to work their way out of poverty. Okay. Limitation leads to inequality as business owners and managers usually make more money and have more wealth than low-level workers. People may start to let greed drive them. So I got research for you. Do some research to see what is the average CEO of US based corporations compared to the average salary of those workers. Do that research for me. Send me an email with your response. The next slide focuses on tax rates from around the world, so some of the highest to the lowest. So these are for individuals. When you file your individual tax return, these are individual tax rates. Here in the United States, the highest tax rate is 39.6% for an individual. But you see that in the country of Belgium and in Japan, they have the highest tax rate for individual at 50%. The lowest we see, Hong Kong seem to have the lowest at about, look like around maybe 3 or 4% will be the lowest. In the United States, 10% currently is the lowest income tax bracket if you have taxable income. This is just what we call atypical taxes, meaning that these are taxes just for a particular state. I thought there might be some fun facts. For example, in Illinois, who stays in Illinois, there's a 5% candy tax unless flour is an ingredient in that treat. Hmm. In New Mexico, citizens that reach 100 years old are exempt from paying state taxes. Minnesota and in others now, as it has become more legal, there is a marijuana tax of 3.50 per gram. In New York, listen to this. If you change your bagel, oops, go back to that one. If you change your bagel by slicing it or adding cream cheese, an 8-cent tax is put on your bill. So these are just some of the strange type of taxes that you have in some of the states here in the United States. Okay? Now we talked about a free market system. Next, let's talk about socialism. This is an economic system based on the premise that some, if not most, basic businesses should be owned by the government. so that profits can be more evenly distributed among the people. So within a socialism, most businesses are going to be owned not by individuals, but by the government. You will have some entrepreneurs who run smaller businesses. In socialism, that normally citizens are going to be highly taxed. The government is more involved in protecting the environment and the poor. These are the factors that come with a socialism economic system. And there's benefits. Typically, you will have more social equality. There could be most of there's free education, free health care, free child care, longer vacations, shorter work weeks, and generous sick leave. Now that's a socialism system. Compare that to capitalism that we have here in the United States. Think about it. Would you want to give up the ability to make higher profits for these benefits shown here under socialism? Okay. Now, of course, there are some negative consequences to socialism. First, there are few incentives for businesses, people to take risks, because again, most of the businesses are going to be owned by the government, and even if you are a small business owner, the government has a large impact on how your profit will be distributed. So a brain drain, the loss of the best and brightest people to other countries, meaning that people in socialist countries sometimes will leave there because they want to go to another country where they can use their expertise to make money for themselves. So often in socialism, you have fewer inventions and less innovation because the reward is not as great as it is in a capitalistic society. Interesting. So some again argue, would you rather have free healthcare, free education, shorter work weeks, or would you rather live in a society where profit is the number one motivator? Communism is an economic and political system in which the government makes pretty much all economic decisions and own almost all the major factors of production. So pretty much everything is pretty much run by the government. Prices don't reflect demand, which may lead to shortage of items, including food and clothing. Most communist countries today suffer severe economic depression. So we have learned over time that having a system where the government is in total control of the resources of that country is not the best approach, if you will. But that's kind of how it works when you have a communist society. So a lot of countries who were under communism, like even like Russia, have adapted to a more free market economy. Okay? In blank economies, the market largely determines goods and services get produced, who gets them, and how the economy grows. Is your response A, B, C, or a D? If you said A, a free market, your response would be correct. Okay? Let's look at two major economic systems: free market economies and what's called command economies. With the free market economies, the economic system in which the market largely determines what goods and services get produced, who gets them, and how the economy grows. With a command economies, it's a system in which the government largely decides what goods and services will be produced, who will get them, and how the economy will grow. So one, free market is determined, the market determines about goods and services. Command economy, the government determines goods and services. Interesting. So we've found out that neither of those two markets have created sound economic conditions. In isolation, the trend has been toward more of a mixed economy, economic system in which some allocations of resources is made by the market and some by the government. How do you feel about this mixed economy approach where the market has an impact on the productive goods and services, but the government also has a hand in there as well. Okay? I think it could be a good thing. GDP, gross domestic product. What is GDP? It is the total value of final goods and services produced in a country in a given year. It is used to measure the economic performance and the overall size of a country's economy. So often you hear the term GDP is used to measure the actual wealth of a company. So it represents the total monetary value of all goods and services produced within a country's border during a specified period. So it may say for the year of 2024, our GDP has a monetary value of X amount of dollars. Now, this is interesting. As long as a company is within a country's border, their numbers go into the GDP, even if they are foreign owned. So if there is a foreign owned corporation, but they're headquartered in the United States and they're producing a product, their products produced here in the United States is included in the GDP for the US. When the GDP changes, business feels the effect. So depending upon the amount of goods and services being produced, that does have an impact on the economy based upon GDP. All right. Let's look at the US GDP in terms of trillions. So we see here is this number in 2019. Our GDP has steady increase over the years. The next slide shows the GDP of other countries. And while the United States, as of 2019, still in the lead, China is catching up in GDP with Japan coming in third. So these are just showing the GDP based upon countries. The United States still leads in GDP in all the different countries. Unemployment rate. Unemployment rate refers to the number of civilians at least 16 years old who are unemployed and try to find a job within the prior 4 weeks. Okay? What we call real unemployment is comprised of those included in standard unemployment above, those who are underemployed, discouraged, and marginally attached. So what does that mean? So we're going to take a look at some different types of unemployment and understand the impact that unemployment has on the United States economic system. Okay? Here we see a graph showing the unemployment rate from 1989 through 2020. So if we take a look at some of the lowest unemployment rates back in 2000, that rate was a little bit under 4%. However, in 2019, due to COVID, the unemployment rate skyrocketed up to almost 15%. Okay? This slide shows 4 types of unemployment: frictional, structural, cyclical unemployment, and seasonal unemployment. What do they mean? I don't know, but stay tuned and I'll tell you in the conclusion of our Chapter 2 video lecture. Bye bye.